The gun was heavier than Zainab expected. Her hands didn't shake as she placed it on the marble counter between them, blood from Daeyeon's shoulder dripping onto the pristine white surface. Outside the locked study, men were shouting in Korean, boots thundering through corridors she'd mopped just that morning. The mansion that had felt like a prison for 3 months now felt like a tomb. "Pick it up," Daeyeon said, his voice steady despite the wound. His eyes, dark and unreadable, fixed on hers. "If they get through that door, you'll need it." Zainab looked at the weapon, then at the man bleeding in front of her, and made a choice that would define everything that followed. But to understand that moment, you had to understand how she'd arrived there. How a girl from Lagos ended up standing in Seoul's most dangerous house, choosing sides in a war she never wanted to fight. 3 months earlier, the gates had opened like jaws. Zainab pressed her face against the van window, watching as black iron parted to reveal a mansion that looked carved from stone and shadows. Armed guards flanked the entrance, their faces expressionless, weapons barely concealed beneath tailored jackets. The other domestic workers in the van, 2 Filipino women and a Vietnamese man, had gone silent the moment those gates appeared. "First contract?" the driver asked in broken English, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Yes," Zainab replied, her accent thick with Lagos inflections. "The agency said it was a private residence. They didn't mention—" "Don't mention anything," he cut her off. "Don't ask questions. Don't make friends. Don't be noticed." The van stopped in a service entrance Zainab hadn't even seen from the front. A woman in her 50s stood waiting, her posture military straight, her expression carved from disapproval. Madame Kwan, the head housekeeper, conducted inspections like a general reviewing troops. "You're the new general cleaner," Madame Kwan said in accented English, barely glancing at Zainab's face. "Contract is 18 months, non-negotiable. Your room is in the East Wing, 3rd floor. You do not enter the West Wing unless specifically instructed. You do not speak to the master of the house unless spoken to first. You do not ask questions about who visits or what you see." "Understood." "Yes, ma'am." "Ma'am Kwan," she corrected sharply. "And one more thing." Her eyes finally met Zainab's, and there was something almost like concern buried beneath the strictness. "Don't be remembered. Girls who get remembered here don't last." The first week passed in a blur of marble floors and endless rules. The mansion sprawled across 3 floors and 2 wings, every room meticulously designed, every surface demanding perfection. Zainab learned quickly that the staff operated in invisible hierarchies, the Korean workers at the top, Southeast Asians in the middle, Africans at the bottom. She learned which hallways to avoid during certain hours, which doors stayed locked, which sounds meant danger. She learned that the master of the house was rarely seen but always felt. Kang Dae-yeon's presence saturated the mansion even when he wasn't there. Staff moved differently when his car entered the grounds. Conversations stopped mid-sentence when his footsteps echoed in corridors. Zainab caught glimpses of him in those first days, a tall figure in dark suits, always surrounded by men who looked like they knew 50 ways to kill silently. "He owns half of Seoul's underground," Ara whispered one evening in the kitchen. The young assistant cook was the only person who'd spoken to Zainab with anything resembling warmth. Gambling, smuggling, protection. "The police don't touch him because he owns half of them too." "Then why do they call it a private residence in the contracts?" Zainab asked, scrubbing a pot with more force than necessary. Ara's laugh was bitter, because work for a crime lord doesn't recruit well. You needed the money badly enough not to ask questions, right? We all did. Zainab thought of her mother's medical bills, her younger siblings' school fees, the debt that had driven her from Lagos to this gilded prison. Ara was right. She'd needed the money badly enough to ignore every warning sign. The first direct encounter happened on a Tuesday morning. Zainab was serving breakfast in the main dining room, a cavernous space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline. Daeyeon sat alone at a table meant for 20, reading something on his tablet, his breakfast untouched. Madame Kwan had instructed her carefully: place the coffee, refill the water, leave immediately. She did exactly that, moving with the quiet efficiency she'd perfected. But as she turned to leave, her foot caught the edge of the antique rug. The water pitcher tilted, and for one horrifying second, Zainab thought she'd spill it directly onto Korea's most feared crime lord. She caught it, barely. Water sloshed but didn't spill. In the silence that followed, she felt his eyes lift from the screen. She should have bowed, apologized, retreated. Instead, she met his gaze, just for a second, and saw something flicker there. Not anger. Curiosity, maybe. Or assessment. "Your name," he said. His voice was deep, unaccented English, educated. "Zainab Okoye, sir. You're new. 3 weeks, sir." He studied her for a long moment, and Zainab felt weighed and measured in ways that had nothing to do with her ability to pour coffee. Finally, he returned to his tablet. "Don't break anything expensive, Zainab Okoye." She bowed and left, her heart hammering against her ribs. Behind her, she felt his attention linger for just a moment longer than necessary. That evening, Madame Kwan pulled her aside. "What did you say to him?" "Just my name," Zainab replied carefully. He asked. The older woman's expression was unreadable. He doesn't usually ask. Be more invisible. But becoming invisible proved impossible after the engagement party. The mansion transformed overnight for the event. Crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than Zainab's childhood home, tables groaning under imported delicacies, guests in clothes that whispered wealth and danger in equal measure. The staff worked double shifts, Zainab among them, moving through the crowd like ghosts in black uniforms. That was when she first saw Seo Hai-rin. The woman entered like she owned not just the room but the air inside it. Tall, devastatingly beautiful in a red dress that probably cost 6 months of Zainab's salary, she moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything. She touched Dayun's arm with proprietary familiarity, smiled at guests with perfect calculation, and radiated the kind of power that came from bloodlines older than the Republic itself. "That's his fiancée," Ara murmured, appearing at Zainab's elbow with a tray of champagne flutes. "Family's old money and older crimes. The marriage is strategic, consolidating territories. Love doesn't enter into it." Zainab watched as Shirin laughed at something a guest said, her hand never leaving Dayun's arm. He looked bored, his expression the same polite mask he wore for business dinners. "Does he love her?" Zainab asked before she could stop herself. Ara's look was sharp. "Men like him don't love, they possess. And she's been trying to possess him back for 5 years. The incident happened an hour into the party. A junior server, a nervous Filipino boy barely 20, stumbled while carrying a tray of wine glasses. Red liquid splashed across the white marble floor and across Hai-rin's designer shoes. The room went silent. Every staff member froze, knowing what came next. Hai-rin's expression transformed from gracious hostess to something cold and cruel. "You clumsy fool," she hissed in Korean, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Do you know what these cost? More than you'll earn in a year of crawling around this house." The boy dropped to his knees, apologizing in broken Korean, his hands shaking as he tried to wipe the wine off her shoes. Hai-rin kicked his hands away. "Don't touch me with your dirty hands. Madame Kwan, I want him dismissed immediately." Zainab moved before thinking. She crossed the space between them, knelt beside the boy, and began efficiently cleaning the spill with napkins from his tray. Her movements were calm, professional, deliberate. She didn't look at Hai-rin, didn't acknowledge the tension crackling through the room. She simply cleaned the mess, helped the boy to his feet, and guided him toward the kitchen. "Who gave you permission to interfere?" Hai-rin's voice cut through the silence. Zainab turned, met her gaze steadily. "No one, ma'am. I apologize for the interruption. What's your name?" "Zainab Okoye." Something flickered in Hai-rin's eyes. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. But before she could respond, Dayun's voice cut through the tension. Hai-rin. Just her name, but said with enough weight that she turned immediately. "These shoes can be replaced. The guests are watching." It was a gentle correction delivered with absolute authority. Hai-rin's smile returned, brittle at the edges, and she waved a dismissive hand. Of course. How silly of me to make a scene over nothing. But her eyes, when they met Zainab's again, promised consequences. Later, after the guests had left and the staff was cleaning up, Ara grabbed Zainab's arm. That was incredibly stupid. He was terrified, Zainab said simply. Someone had to help. You don't understand how things work here. Irene doesn't forget slights. And Dae-yun, Ara hesitated. He noticed you. That's worse. I didn't do anything to be noticed. You existed in his line of sight when something interesting happened. That's enough. Ara's warning proved prophetic. The next morning, Madame Kwan summoned Zainab to her office, her expression more conflicted than angry. You're being reassigned, she said without preamble. Master Kang has requested you as his personal attendant. Zainab's stomach dropped. I don't understand. I'm a general cleaner. I don't have training for... You don't refuse Master Kang's requests, Madame Kwan interrupted. And you don't ask why he makes them. You'll attend to his private rooms, his wardrobe, serve his meals when he eats alone. You'll be available when he requires assistance. That's all. Ma'am Kwan, please. The older woman's expression softened slightly. I warned you not to be remembered. Now you are. Be smart about it. Men like him are dangerous in ways you can't imagine. But they're also the only protection you have in this house now that Irene has marked you. The first day in her new role, Zainab entered Dae-yun's private study with hands that wanted to shake. He was working at his desk, papers and tablets spread before him, his suit jacket discarded over a chair. He didn't look up when she entered. Coffee, black, no sugar. She prepared it exactly as instructed, placed it on his desk, and turned to leave. Why did you help him? The question stopped her at the door. She turned back slowly. Sir, at the party. The boy who spilled wine. Why intervene? Zainab chose her words carefully. He was afraid. Someone needed to help. You put yourself at risk for someone you don't know. That's either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, sir. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. You can speak freely here. When we're alone, formality isn't necessary. With respect, sir, I think formality is very necessary. Now he did look up, and his gaze was intense enough that Zainab felt pinned by it. You're afraid of me. I'd be stupid not to be, yet you're still standing here. Not cowering, not crying, just standing. Would cowering or crying change anything? He leaned back in his chair, studying her with that same calculating intensity she'd felt during their first encounter. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who'd try to seduce me or someone who'd be too terrified to function? You're neither. Zainab met his eyes steadily. I'm here to work, sir. That's all. That's refreshing. He returned to his papers, and she understood the dismissal. But as she reached the door again, his voice stopped her once more. Your family. In Nigeria. They're why you're here? The personal question caught her off guard. Yes, sir. Tell me about them. Why? Because I'm asking. So she told him, brief facts stripped of emotion, her mother's illness, her siblings' education, the debt her father had left when he died. She didn't embellish or plead, just stated reality. When she finished, Dae-yun nodded slowly. Loyalty to family. I understand that. He paused. You'll find your salary has been increased, retroactive to your start date. The difference will be wired to your mother's account monthly. Zainab's breath caught. Sir, I don't... It's not charity. I pay for competence and discretion. You've demonstrated both. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. This position comes with different risks than mopping floors. Over the following weeks, Zainab learned the rhythms of Dae-yun's world. She learned that he worked until 3 or 4 in the morning, that he drank his coffee black because anything else was a weakness, that the scars on his hands came from violence he never discussed. She learned to read his moods in the set of his shoulders, to know when to speak and when silence was safer. She also learned that Irene's jealousy was a living, breathing thing. It started with small cruelties. Zainab's uniforms went missing, only to reappear torn or stained. Her room was searched, personal items moved or broken. Madame Kwan looked the other way, understanding that to intervene would make things worse. Then Hai Rin started appearing during Zainab's working hours. "So you're the new pet," she said one afternoon, finding Zainab organizing Daeyeon's wardrobe. Her tone was light, conversational, deadly. "The exotic acquisition. I suppose I should have expected it. Men like Daeyeon get bored easily." "I'm just staff, ma'am. Don't lie to me." Hee-Rin moved closer, her perfume expensive and cloying. "I've seen how he looks at you, like you're a puzzle he wants to solve. It's how he looked at me once, before he realized I wasn't a puzzle at all, just a necessity. I have no designs on Master Kang. Designs don't matter. Proximity does. You're in his private spaces, seeing him when his armor's down. That's more intimate than anything he shares with me." Her smile was sharp enough to cut. "But let me educate you about the man you're serving. He's not capable of love. He's capable of possession, control, strategic acquisition. Whatever you think you see in those quiet moments, it's not humanity. It's just another form of calculation." "I don't claim to know what he is," Zainab said carefully. "I'm not trying to know. Good. Because women who try to understand Kang Daeyeon end up destroyed, one way or another." Hai-Rin turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Zainab? Your work visa is dependent on this employment contract. If you're dismissed, you'll be deported within 48 hours. Remember that when you're feeling brave." After she left, Zainab sat on the floor of Daeyeon's closet and let herself shake. Aura found her there 20 minutes later. "She cornered you. How did you know?" "Because she does it to everyone she sees as competition." Aura sat beside her. "The last girl who got too close to Daeyeon disappeared. Not killed, probably. Just sent away. New identity, new country, enough money to start over. He protects what's his, but he also removes problems before they become crises. I'm not his, aren't you? He promoted you, increased your pay, keeps you close. In this world, that's ownership." Aura pulled out her phone, tapped it thoughtfully. "I'm going to start recording when I'm near Hai-Rin. Just in case. You should do the same." "Why would I need to?" "Because the engagement is falling apart. Her family's making moves against Daeyeon's territory. The marriage was supposed to prevent war, but now it might cause one. And when powerful people go to war, the staff are collateral damage." That night, Zainab was tending to Daeyeon's study when he returned from a meeting with blood on his knuckles. Not his blood, she noted clinically, as she brought the first aid kit she'd learned to keep stocked. He didn't protest as she cleaned the wounds, though his jaw tightened when the antiseptic stung. In the silence, Zainab felt the weight of unasked questions, the careful distance they both maintained. "Hai-Rin spoke to you today," he said finally. "Not a question." "Yes, sir. What did she say?" "That I should remember my place." His laugh was dry, humorless. "She's worried. Her uncle, Assemblyman SCO, is making moves to absorb my operations into his own. The marriage was supposed to prevent that, create a united front, but now," he flexed his newly bandaged hands, "now alliances are fracturing. Is that why you're bleeding? Negotiations broke down. Some people only understand one language." Zainab finished wrapping his hands, stepped back professionally. "Sir, if my presence here is causing complications—" "Your presence is irrelevant to the complications." He caught her wrist, not hard, but firmly enough that she couldn't step away. His eyes, when they met hers, held something she couldn't quite name. "But I need to know something. If this situation escalates, and it will you run? Where would I run to?" "My visa is tied to this employment. That's not what I'm asking. If real danger comes to this house, will you scatter with the others, or—" He paused, choosing words carefully. "Or will you choose a side? What side would I be choosing?" His grip on her wrist tightened slightly. "Mine." Zainab's heart hammered. "You know what you are. You've never pretended otherwise." "I respect that. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." He released her wrist, sat back. "Fair enough. But when the time comes, and it will come soon, you'll have to choose. Everyone does. The choice came sooner than either expected. 2 weeks later, Assemblyman SEO visited the mansion for what was supposed to be a private negotiation. Zainab was serving tea when she noticed the tension, the way Dae-yoon's lieutenants positioned themselves near exits, the way Jun-ho kept his hand near his concealed weapon. Uncle Hee-rin greeted the assemblyman with a kiss on each cheek, her smile poisonous. "I'm so glad you could come." The negotiation lasted an hour. Zainab wasn't privy to the details, but she heard raised voices, the crash of something breaking. When the assemblyman's men started moving toward the doors, Jun-ho's whispered command sent staff scattering. The first gunshot came from outside. Zainab was in the hallway when the world exploded into chaos. Armed men poured through the mansion's entrances, not Dae-yoon's men. The coup attempt was precise, coordinated, devastating. Staff screamed and ran. Somewhere, alarms shrieked. She should have run too. Madame Kwan was shouting for everyone to evacuate through the service exits. But Zainab thought of Dae-yoon in his study, probably surrounded, possibly outnumbered. She ran toward danger instead of away from it. The study doors were open, bodies already on the floor. Dae-yoon's guards, she realized with horror. Inside, Dae-yoon was behind his desk, gun drawn, blood seeping through his shirt from a shoulder wound. 3 of SEO's men advanced on him. Zainab didn't think. She grabbed the door, slammed it shut, and threw the heavy bolt. Then she turned to find Dae-yoon staring at her with something between shock and fury. "What the hell are you doing?" "Being stupid," she said, and reached for the gun on the dead guard's belt. She placed it on the desk between them with shaking hands. "If they get through that door, you'll need backup." The pounding started immediately. Voices shouting in Korean demanding entry. Dae-yoon moved to the desk, pressed something underneath it. A panel in the wall slid open, revealing weapons and a communication system. He pulled a second gun, checked the ammunition, then looked at her again. "You chose, I chose," she confirmed. "You understand what that means. After this, if we survive, you're marked, not as staff, as something else entirely. I know. You're terrified." He could see it in her eyes, hear it in her breathing. "Absolutely. But I'm still here." Something shifted in his expression then, something almost like wonder. "You're extraordinary." The door shuddered under a battering ram. Dae-yoon handed her the second gun, showed her quickly how to aim, how to fire. His hands were steady on hers despite his wound. "Stay behind the desk. Shoot anything that comes through that door that isn't Jun-ho." The door exploded inward. The next 90 seconds were violence and noise. Zainab fired 3 times, missed twice, hit once. Dae-yoon moved like death itself, efficient and cold. When Jun-ho and reinforcements finally arrived, 5 bodies littered the study floor. None of them were Zainab's or Dae-yoon's. In the aftermath, as authorities were paid off and bodies removed, as the mansion slowly returned controlled chaos, Dae-yoon found Zainab sitting in the hallway outside his study. She'd washed the gunpowder residue from her hands but couldn't stop them from shaking. He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Hee-rin orchestrated it," he said quietly. Her uncle's coup had her fingerprints all over it. Ara recorded a conversation between them, planning it 3 days ago. She brought it to Jun-ho this morning, but we didn't expect them to move so quickly. What will happen to her? She's already gone. Not killed. I'm not that merciful. But she'll never threaten anyone again. He touched her still trembling hand. You killed someone today. I know. It will stay with you. I know that too. He turned to look at her fully. I'm offering you an exit. New identity, relocation, enough money to take care of your family for years. Clean break, no consequences. Zainab had thought about this moment through the whole violent afternoon. She'd thought about what it meant to stand beside a man like Kang Da-yeon, what it would cost, what she'd become. I don't want an exit. You don't know what you're saying. I do. She finally met his eyes. You never lied to me about what you are. You never pretended to be good or righteous. You're exactly what you appear to be. Dangerous, powerful, unrepentant. And her voice steadied. I didn't fall in love with a fantasy. I fell in love with the truth. His expression was unreadable. I can't give you a normal life. I didn't ask for one. I won't change for you. I won't become softer or better. I'm not asking you to change. Then what are you asking for? Nothing. I'm just choosing. She touched his face, careful of his injuries. I'm choosing you exactly as you are, not who you could be, not who I wish you were. You. Is that enough? For a long moment, Kang Da-yun, Seoul's most feared crime lord, a man who'd built an empire on violence and control, said nothing. Then he kissed her, fierce and claiming, a seal on a choice they'd both made. It's enough, he said against her lips. It's more than enough. 3 months later, Zainab stood in the main hall as staff assembled for a house meeting. Dae-yun was beside her, his hand resting possessively on her back. Madame Kwan approached them, bowed to both. The new contracts are ready for your review, ma'am. Thank you, Madame Kwan, Zainab replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd earned her place through fire and choice. Across the hall, new staff members whispered, wondering who this woman was who stood beside the kingpin as an equal. Aura smiled from her position near the kitchen, understanding what others didn't, that love in this world looked nothing like fairy tales. That night, as they stood on the balcony overlooking Seoul's glittering lights, Dae-yun pulled Zainab against him. Any regrets? She thought about the girl who'd arrived 3 months ago, desperate and naive. Thought about the woman she'd become, harder, wiser, marked by violence but not broken by it. None, she said honestly. You? I regret nothing that brought you here. He turned her to face him, his expression intense in the city lights. You chose the devil. Everyone will judge you for it. Let them. She touched his face, traced the scar along his jaw. I didn't choose you for approval. I chose you because I saw exactly who you are and loved you anyway. That's more honest than most people ever get. You're extraordinary, Zainab Okoye. I'm just a woman who chose truth over fantasy. She smiled, and it held all the complexity of their impossible love. And I'd choose it again. I'd choose you again. Every time. He kissed her as Seoul's underworld spread beneath them, a kingdom built on darkness that she'd claimed as her own. She hadn't softened him, hadn't redeemed him, hadn't changed anything about who Kang Da-yun was. She'd simply chosen to stand beside the devil and call it love. And that, in its own savage way, was a kind of salvation, not for him, but for both of them. Two people who'd seen each other clearly in a world of illusions, and decided that truth, however dark, was worth more than any beautiful lie. The mansion's lights blazed behind them as they stood together, two souls who'd found something rare and real in the darkness. A love built not on who they wished each other to be, but on who they actually were. If you enjoyed this story of dark romance and impossible choices, please subscribe to our channel for more captivating narratives that explore the complex nature of love and power. Leave a comment below telling us what you thought of Zainab's choice. Would you have done the same? And don't forget to like this video to help others discover stories that challenge conventional romance. Your support means everything, and we can't wait to bring you more tales that keep you glued to the very end.